On Christmas morning, while most families were waking up to wrapped presents and warm kitchens, a struggling single father named Marcus Vale stood outside a small grocery store with exactly $20 in his wallet. That $20 was supposed to buy Christmas dinner for him and his 8-year-old daughter, Tessa. Then he noticed an elderly homeless man sitting alone on a cold concrete bench, staring at a paper cup as if it contained the last piece of hope left in his life. Marcus knew what that $20 meant. It meant food on their table. It meant his little girl would have something special for Christmas. But when the old man quietly lowered his head, Marcus did something that would change both their lives forever. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still matters, that people deserve second chances, and that one small act can change a life, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, leave a comment, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Marcus had learned the hard way that life did not always give people what they deserved. At 37, he was raising Tessa alone in a small apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin, the heater rattled through the night, and the kitchen window had a crack that he had covered with clear tape. But every morning, Marcus made sure Tessa woke up believing that their little home was still a place filled with love. He worked long hours as a delivery driver, taking extra shifts whenever they were available, but that December had been especially difficult. His company had reduced hours, his old van needed repairs, and 2 weeks earlier, the landlord had warned him that the rent could not be late again. Still, Marcus had promised Tessa that Christmas would be different. He had secretly saved small amounts from every paycheck and planned to buy her a second-hand blue bicycle she had been admiring through the window of a neighborhood shop. It was not new, but Marcus had cleaned it, tightened the brakes, and polished the frame until it looked almost perfect. He had hidden it behind a curtain in their apartment, waiting for Christmas morning. He also wanted to buy a small chicken, some bread, vegetables, and a chocolate cake. Nothing extravagant. Just enough to make Tessa feel that Christmas had arrived. That morning, however, his plans changed when his manager called and told him that his delivery shift had been cancelled because of a scheduling mistake. Marcus walked home through crowded streets filled with decorations, music, and shoppers carrying expensive bags. He tried not to look at the bright store windows. He kept thinking about the $20 in his wallet and wondering whether it would be enough for dinner. When he reached the grocery store, he saw the old man sitting outside beneath a faded Christmas decoration. The man appeared to be in his late 60s, wearing a thin gray coat that was too large for him, worn trousers, and shoes with a noticeable tear near one heel. Marcus walked past him at first. He made it almost to the entrance before stopping. Something about the man's expression pulled him back. It was not begging. It was not anger. It was simply exhaustion. Marcus knew that look because he had worn it himself on nights when Tessa was asleep and he was sitting at the kitchen table trying to figure out which bill could wait another week. The old man looked up as Marcus approached. Marcus asked if he had eaten anything that day. The man slowly shook his head. Marcus reached into his wallet and felt the $20 bill between his fingers. For several seconds, he stood there fighting with himself. He imagined Tessa's face when she saw the dinner he had promised. He imagined the bicycle behind the curtain. He thought about the rent, the van, and every responsibility sitting on his shoulders. Then he looked at the man's trembling hands. Marcus placed the $20 bill into his palm. The old man's eyes widened. He tried to give it back, but Marcus gently closed the man's fingers around it and told him that everyone deserved a warm meal on Christmas. Then Marcus walked into the store with nothing left in his wallet. He bought a loaf of bread using the few coins in his jacket pocket and walked home. When Tessa saw him, she immediately knew something was wrong. Children often notice the things adults try hardest to hide. Marcus smiled and told her they would make Christmas dinner together. He did not tell her that there was almost nothing in the kitchen. Instead, he pulled out the bread, found 2 potatoes, half an onion, and a can of soup. Tessa looked at the small collection of food and then at her father. Marcus expected disappointment. Instead, she smiled. She said that they could make the best Christmas soup in the world. That evening, they sat together beside their tiny table while snow began falling outside. Marcus watched Tessa laugh as she stirred the soup, and for a moment he forgot about the overdue rent and broken van. He realized that perhaps Christmas was not about having enough. Perhaps it was about making sure someone else did not feel alone. The next morning, Marcus received a phone call from an unfamiliar number. He almost ignored it. But something made him answer. The caller introduced himself as the executive assistant to the chairman of the company where Marcus had been delivering packages. Marcus assumed there had been a mistake. Then the assistant said something that made his heart stop. The chairman wanted to speak with him immediately. Marcus could not understand why. He had never met the chairman. He was just a delivery driver, one of hundreds of employees working beneath a huge corporate structure. He had never attended a company meeting or entered the executive offices. He had never received special attention from anyone at the top. Yet 30 minutes later, Marcus found himself standing inside a polished corporate building, wearing the cleanest shirt he owned and wondering if he was about to lose his job. An assistant led him into a large conference room. Standing beside the window was Chairman Everett Rowan, a respected businessman known for being private, demanding, and extremely successful. Marcus had seen his photograph in company newsletters but had never imagined meeting him. Everett turned around and studied Marcus quietly. Then he asked Marcus if he recognized someone. A door opened. The homeless man from the grocery store walked into the room. Marcus froze. The man was wearing a clean suit now, his gray hair neatly combed, his posture completely different. Marcus stared at him in disbelief. The man introduced himself as Arthur Bell. He was not homeless. He was the retired founder of a non-profit organization that helped families facing financial hardship. More importantly, he was Chairman Everett Rowan's father. Marcus could barely speak. Arthur explained that he had been conducting a personal experiment. He wanted to understand whether people still noticed those who had fallen through society's cracks. He had spent several days dressed as a homeless man, sitting in different public places, and almost everyone had ignored him. Then Marcus had stopped. Marcus tried to explain that he had not known who Arthur was. He said he would have done the same thing even if Arthur had been completely unknown. Everett looked at his father. Arthur smiled. Then came the part Marcus never expected. Everett explained that the company had been searching for a new community outreach director for months. They needed someone who understood ordinary working families, someone who knew what it meant to struggle, and someone who would not treat people like numbers on a spreadsheet. Arthur had told Everett that Marcus was the first person he had met in weeks who gave without expecting anything in return. But Everett had done something else. He had reviewed Marcus's employment record. He discovered that Marcus had repeatedly volunteered for extra deliveries, had never complained about difficult routes, and had once spent his own money helping an elderly customer repair a damaged package. He also learned that Marcus's work hours had been reduced because of an administrative mistake, not poor performance. Everett offered Marcus a full-time supervisory position with better pay, health benefits, and a schedule that would allow him to spend evenings with Tessa. Marcus stood speechless. He asked why they were doing all this for him. Arthur looked at him and explained that the $20 was not really what changed their minds. It was the fact that Marcus had given it away when he needed it most. Everett then handed Marcus an envelope. Inside was enough money to repair his van, pay his overdue rent, and cover several months of living expenses. There was also a scholarship arrangement for Tessa's future education. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. He had spent years believing that asking for help meant failure. That morning, he finally understood something different. Sometimes help arrived because someone had seen the strength you were too exhausted to recognize in yourself. Months passed. Marcus accepted the position and slowly rebuilt his life. His van was repaired. The apartment above the laundromat became temporary, and eventually he moved into a small but comfortable home where Tessa had a room of her own. But Marcus never forgot the bench outside the grocery store. He started a Christmas meal program through the company, providing food and warm clothing to families and people experiencing homelessness. Every year, he personally volunteered there. And every Christmas, he kept one $20 bill in his wallet. Not because he expected to need it. Because he wanted to remember the day he gave away everything he had and somehow received something far more valuable in return. Years later, Tessa would tell people that her father taught her the greatest Christmas lesson she had ever learned. She said her father showed her that being rich was not about how much money you had in your pocket. It was about how much kindness you were willing to give when your own pocket was nearly empty. And perhaps that was the real miracle of that Christmas morning. Marcus thought he had given $20 to a stranger. Instead, he had given hope to someone who was watching. He had given his daughter a lesson she would carry for the rest of her life. And without knowing it, he had opened a door to a completely different future. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Hardworking Dad. Sometimes a simple act of compassion is exactly what someone needs to keep believing in humanity. And before you go, here is a special request: comment, "Kindness comes back," below if you believe that no good deed is ever truly wasted. Because somewhere out there, someone may be having the hardest Christmas of their life. And maybe the kindness you show them today will become the reason they believe tomorrow can be better. Marcus gave away his last $20. He never expected anything in return. But that Christmas, he learned that the greatest gifts are not always wrapped beneath a tree. Sometimes, they are found in the moment you choose to care when nobody is watching.